Let me know when you see me on YouTube. Okay, good. We are there. Let's make sure we get Instagram on. All right. So, all right. Woo, Lordy Jesus. Okay. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Instagram. Welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors Show. Oh, sorry, Instagram. I just messed y'all up. My bad. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all know I be messing it up sometimes because we be doing this in real time. Let's try it again. All right. We're going live on Instagram. Okay. Whoo, here we are. Hi, YouTube. And hello, Instagram. We got a lot to talk about today. And while I want to have a conversation about the Supreme Court and everything that the Supreme Court did, and I'd actually planned on doing that this weekend, but then I got confused with the timing because I told y'all previously I was going to do my weekend lives on the first and third weekend. Just know that my math was not mathing, and so that's why we did not have this conversation over the weekend about the Supreme Court. We have to have a conversation about the Supreme Court, but today we got to have a slightly different discussion because there's a power work assignment that I need everyone to pay attention to because the big bad bitch ass bill is back. Now, I know that you were supposed to call it the big beautiful bill. It's not beautiful. It's ugly. I know that some people are very concerned with my use of profanity. You're going to be okay. It's a terrible, awful, no good, very bad bill. And because of that, for that reason, we are going to talk about that today because I need you all to call your senators. I need you all to call your elected officials. I need you all to not just call them. I need you to add them on social media. I need you to fax them. For those of you who have a fax machine or e-fax, child, I keep a good e-fax account just for moments like this, okay? Because you need to be able to fax them, email them, get at them on social media, go to their offices, make an appointment to meet them, or show up unannounced, lovingly, of course, but we got to talk about it because there are so many things that have been packed into this bill over the weekend. Now, y'all remember before we were talking about this bill when it was in the House, when our congressional representatives, we each have a congressional representative for our district. You have one congressional representative for your district. This was in the House of Representatives. It was a terrible bill when it was in the House of Representatives, but now it's even worse that it's in the Senate. Keep in mind, you have two senators. One congressional representative, two senators. And so when you call your elected officials, which you are going to have to do, you got to call both of your senators and your congressional representative. So, for example, Hakeem Jeffries is my congressman when it comes to where my house is at, and Yvette Clarke is my congresswoman when it comes to where I work. I'm going to be calling both of them because even though they're both Democrats and I know that they're going to vote the right way when it comes to the Senate or when it comes to the Congress, I still want them to know how I feel about it. I also have two senators, Kirsten Gillibrand, who is a whole ass clown right now. I don't know what the heck she thought she was doing coming out speaking against Zoran, how you say the man's name? Zoran Mamdani, but she played herself. Kirsten Gillibrand, you are doing much ado about nothing. I need you to stop. But I have to call her and I got to call Chuck Schumer about everything we're going to talk about right now because it is not a guarantee that the Democrats are going to be able to hold it together because you got John Fetterman, you got a whole bunch of Democrats out there who be trying to act like they Republican light. So I was about to call somebody's name, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see how they do. But I need you all to know this. Here's what's most important about what's happening with this bill. A lot of people, and this is the big bitch ass bill. They like to call it the big beautiful bill. It's a big bitch ass bill. And it's basically a bill that is going to give permanent tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires. But in order to support and fund the permanent tax cuts for the millionaires and billionaires, they got to cut spending everywhere else. And where are they going to cut spending everywhere in order to make money for the millionaires and the billionaires? For the poor, for the working poor. And for a lot of you who don't think that you're poor or working poor, I hate to be the one to disabuse you of this notion. You actually are. I'm a working poor, and I make good money, but I don't come anywhere. And for the purposes of this bill, I'm a working poor because I don't make $1 million every year in income. And if you are not making $1 million or more in income, you're a working poor as it pertains to this particular bill. But the other challenge that's happening is that a lot of people don't know that they are actually getting Medicaid. And a lot of you think that if your program is not called Medicaid, that it don't count for you. I'm going to actually read what the names of these programs are called in their states so that you know that they are talking about you. When they're talking about cutting Medicaid, they're talking about cutting this. So if you are in, let's just go from the top. Okay, if you are in Alabama, it's called Alabama Care. If you are in Arizona, it's called it's just called healthcare. No, I'm sorry. If you're in Arizona, it's called AZ Healthcare Cost Containment Systems. If you are in Alaska, it's called Denali Care. If you're in California, it's Medi-Cal. If you're in Colorado, it's Health First Colorado. If you're in Connecticut, it's Husky Health. That's cute. If you're in D.C., it's called Healthy Families. If you're in Delaware, it's called Diamond State Health Plan Plus. If you're in Florida, it's Statewide Medicaid Managed Care Program. If you're in Georgia, it's called Georgia Medicaid. If you're in Hawaii, it's called MedQuest. If you're in Idaho, it's called Idaho Medicaid. If you're in Illinois, It's called Medical Assistance Program. If you're in Indiana, it's called the Hoosier HealthWise. If you're in Iowa, it's called Iowa Health Link. If you're in Kansas, it's CanCare Medical Assistance Program. If you're in Kentucky, it's called Kentucky Medicaid. If you're in Louisiana, it's called Healthy Louisiana. Louisiana, we got something for you in a minute because every single one of the medical services in your state just told the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who was a congressional representative from the state of Louisiana, that this was a terrible bitch-ass bill that was going to devastate healthcare in Louisiana. Mike Johnson was like, fuck you and the poor. Nah, here. He ain't say that in a Caribbean accent, but that's basically what he said. In Maine, it's called Maine Care. In Maryland, it's called Medical Assistance. In Massachusetts, it's called Mass Health. In Michigan, it's called Medical Assistance. In Minnesota, it's called Medical Assistance Minnesota Care. In Mississippi, it's called Mississippi Can. Mississippi Can destroy your ability to have access to health care. We've already seen what Mississippi could do when it came to the Dobbs decision, and that's half the reason why we ain't got reproductive health care in half the states right now. In Missouri, it's called Missouri Health Net. Montana is Montana Medicaid. Nebraska is Access Nebraska. Nevada Medicaid. This is going to matter because a lot of y'all getting health care that you don't know is provided for poor people because you don't think you poor. Think that if you want, but people in your family who have these programs, they are going to need them. And we're going to talk about why in a minute. New Hampshire is New Hampshire Medicaid. New Jersey is NJ Family Care. New Mexico is Centennial Care. New York is Medicaid Managed Care. North Carolina, Division of Health Benefits. North Dakota is the North Dakota Medicaid expansion. Ohio is Ohio Medicaid. Oklahoma is Sooner Care. Oregon is Oregon Health Plan. Pennsylvania is Medical Assistance. Rhode Island is Rhode Island Medical Assistance Program. South Carolina is Healthy Connection. South Dakota Medicaid. Tennessee is 10 Care. 10 don't care nothing about y'all. I'm just saying what's happening in Tennessee right now is awful. In Texas, it's called Star Plus or Texas Medicaid. In Utah, it's the Department of Health and Human Services. In Vermont, it's Green Mountain Care or Dr. Dinosaur. That's adorable. Dr. Dyna, Dynasaur. That's adorable, Vermont. Nice. That's very cute. Virginia is Cardinal Care. Washington is Apple Health. West Virginia is West Virginia Medicaid. Wisconsin is Badger Care or Wisconsin Medicaid. Wyoming is Equality Care. Why does this matter? It matters because when Republicans do the business of cutting your health care programs, they often do it without telling you what the actual programs they're going to cut look like, what they sound like, what they're called. So it's very important that you know this. Now let's get back to Louisiana for a second, because this is a real good example as to how the people you elect, when you elect them because you don't want a black woman to win, or when you elect them because you think that they're going to be cruel to the immigrants and they end up dismantling your entire industry and you end up falling flat on your face, you really need to pay attention to this right now. Every Louisiana hospital system, according to Politico, has basically informed Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. That's the one who is in charge of all the representatives in Congress. I shouldn't say that. He's in charge of the Republican representatives in Congress. And because the Republicans have more numbers than Democrats do in Congress right now, he's in charge of, basically, he runs Congress. And so they told him that every major health system in Louisiana has warned Speaker Mike Johnson and the rest of the state's congressional delegation that the Senate GOP's planned Medicaid cuts would be historic in their devastation. They sent a letter to also Majority Leader Steve Scalise, also to GOP Senator Bill Cassidy, a physician who himself has raised concerns about the cuts. According to Politico, they've said that the healthcare systems in Louisiana said that the Senate's revised texts hit states like Louisiana even harder than the previous iterations, and would slash more than $4 billion in Medicaid funding for that state's healthcare providers. Here's what's going to happen. When they cut Medicaid at the federal level, because remember before they were going to cut up to $880 billion in Medicaid. Now it's looking like they're going to approach cutting $1 trillion out of Medicaid, which is absolutely insane. But what that's going to mean is they're going to cut it at the federal level. When they cut it at the federal level, your state's governor is going to have to make decisions with your state legislature about how to cover the gap that is going to be left as a result of the fact that the federal government is no longer going to supply these healthcare needs. What that means is your governor and your state legislators are going to have conversations about budget cuts, because if they're going to fill in the state of Louisiana, how much was it? If it's a $4 billion gap in the state of Louisiana, in the Louisiana Medicaid system, then that means that the state of Louisiana has to come up with an additional $4 billion to just bring you back to where you were already when it comes to healthcare. Not to advance healthcare, not to expand healthcare, just to maintain the current status that you currently have. They would have to come up with $4 billion, which means that your state governor is going to have to cut from other areas if your state governor plans on actually providing healthcare coverage for you as a part of the rights that you get from being a citizen and resident of that state. Not all governors are going to do that. And for those of you who live in Republican states, I am so sorry to tell you, because that means a whole lot of black people are about to lose so much access to so many programs and to so many resources that you absolutely need, because you live in states where Republicans are in the governor's house, Republicans are in the state Senate, and Republicans are in the state assembly. And because of that, they don't care. They did not want to expand Medicaid. They did not want to expand the Affordable Care Act. When Obamacare was happening, also known as the Affordable Care Act, they rejected the expansion then. When it was like the federal government covering $9 out of $10, nine tenths of every dollar. They rejected it then. They do not care about you. And when you do not hold them accountable at the voting site or at the poll booth, then they get to just basically have the power to take from you. And that's exactly what's happening right now. According to the Child Health Association, because a lot of people think, well, I don't have Medicaid. I don't have Medicare. Like, I get private insurance. I'm going to be fine. No, ma'am, no, sir, no, friend, you will not. Because when people are thrown off their health care, they go to hospitals as the primary source of health support. And when you're sitting up in a hospital emergency room and the rooms are all full, and not even the emergency room, but the beds are full because people who used to be able to have a primary care physician now have to go to the emergency room, all the rest of us who have private insurance are also going to have extended wait times. We're going to have to compete for doctors because the doctors are going to have to provide care for the people who show up. And if you show up and you don't have coverage or insurance, and I do, me having insurance don't mean I'm going to get to cut the line in front of you. It means that the doctor's going to have to meet with you because they're no longer able to defer you or refer you to your primary healthcare physician. All of us are going to be impacted. The Children's Hospital Association are urging the senators to oppose the reconciliation bill because of the harms it is going to inflict on children's care. They issued out a statement that basically said the new version of the budget reconciliation bill is a crisis for children's health care, hospitals, and providers nationwide. We ask Congress to oppose it as an act of support for America's children. They say the bill goes much too far. This is a direct quote. It cuts crucial funding streams like provider taxes and state-directed payments. That means your child, regardless of their insurance status, could see the services that they rely on reduced or eliminated with significantly less support to sustain them. They go on to say the bill amounts to fewer doctors and nurses to see your child, longer wait times, and sicker children. And quite frankly, it don't matter if I'm doing good financially. If I'm sending my child to school and I'm doing well financially and you're sending your child to school and you are financially struggling and your child is sick because you don't have access to health care and my child is healthy because I do, guess what's going to happen when my child comes home? My whole house going to get sick because my child being in a household that has financial sustainability is not going to protect the germs because germs like COVID don't give a good goddamn about your boundaries, your borders, your class division. It don't give a good goddamn because we all got to breathe the same air. And this bill also makes it likely that the air we are all going to breathe is going to be disgustingly filthy. But we'll get to that part in a minute because the big bad bitch ass bill doesn't just cut healthcare. It cuts all the other social services that we also need. We'll talk about that in a second. The Children's Health Association says, Children's Hospital Association says, cutting programs to support the health of our next generation doesn't reduce spending. It borrows from today and ensures that kids tomorrow will have to need more care down the road. And so essentially they said Congress built the Medicaid and the CHIP programs to provide needed care for the 37 million children. There are 37 million babies who don't have access to health care without these programs that are going to witness their ability to stay safe directly in the crosshairs if we don't do the work of making sure that we are calling our elected officials. Now, the other challenge is that this bill is going to ensure that it's not just the health care that we are going to deal with, those of us who are not necessarily living in nursing homes. How many of you have somebody, a family member who's in a nursing home? I know in the Black community, it's a little taboo topic. We don't like putting our people in homes, and it's a good thing because frankly, what I'm about to talk about is going to be a big issue. For those of you who have a family member who is in a home, and let me just say this really quickly because the way I said that might have sounded a little flippant. There are a lot of us who quite frankly have no choice but to put our elders into a home because the amount of care that they require is so significant. And the physical inability to care for an elder once they reach a certain age it weighs so heavily. We had an elder who we moved into our household who was no longer in a position where he could care for himself. And there was one point where we had them on the ground floor because we knew they couldn't manage the stairs. They just could not get up and downstairs. Their body physically could not do it. And we had a bathroom on the ground floor. So we were very happy about this because we were able to put them in a room that was not far from the bathroom on the ground floor. And getting a full bathroom on the ground floor is difficult in a lot of single family homes. So we were very excited about the fact that, okay, we've got everything together. But then we realized shortly after moving this family member in, just the walk from their bedroom on the first floor to the bathroom was so physically taxing. They physically could not it didn't matter that we had spent all this time finding a house with a bathroom on the first floor because we bought our house knowing we were going to be bringing our family member to live with us. It didn't matter because they physically couldn't get it. And this family member at 90 something years old was too heavy for us to carry. So it would be my husband on one side, me on the other, and our son in the back trying to help this family member along. Literally could not physically manage it. Could not. And it was devastating because there was a certain point before this family member ultimately transitioned and became an ancestor where our healthcare team, the healthcare provider team was like, y'all y'all can't do this. You don't have the medical expertise to do this. What their body physically needed was so great that we were at the point where we were going to have to consider what it would look like to evaluate care options, because we weren't able to bring somebody into the household for enough hours of the day to make sure that they were not there by themselves. So we had some home health aid, but not enough to cover the work hours that we had, the school hours that we had. So our healthcare provider team was like, y'all got to think about putting this person in a home. And we was like, absolutely the fuck not. But we realized, and sadly, that family member ultimately transitioned soon thereafter. But we realized, had that family member not transitioned and become an ancestor, we were going to have a conversation about what it would look like to consider putting this person in a home, because we physically did not have the medical apparatus within our household to be able to do what we needed to do for this person to have the quality of life that they needed so that they could die in dignity and make their transition in their final days as beautiful as they could. So as much as I say, culturally, we don't really put our people in homes, sometimes we have no choice. And I don't think we should have shame about that. I think if for those of us, because it is a very challenging conversation to have. But for those who have to have somebody in a home, Medicaid funds cover nearly 60 to 70% of the fees that are incurred when somebody is staying in a nursing home. How many of you live in a state that's called a familial care state, where if for some reason your loved one who is in a nursing home cannot afford to make the payments and your state no longer is filling in the gap, if that person has to stay in a nursing home, it's not that they stay there for free. Your paychecks, your aid, whatever money you are bringing into the household will be garnished in order to support this family member getting their needs met. So even if you think, I've got private insurance, I have a person who's in a home and they're covered because they're in a home and their coverage supports them, that person who is in that home, if the Medicaid funding is cut, guess who's going to be paying for that home, that health care that your family member absolutely needs? You are, or the next of kin. You might want to check who's listed as the next of kin. If you're in a state where you are going to be required to cover the amount of money that's necessary to keep your loved one in care. These are things we have to think about. And so let's talk about some of the other things that are in this bill. Up to 17 million people will lose access to health care. It's also going to increase our electricity costs by up to 30%. Why? Because part of making enough money in the pot available to give billionaires and millionaires as many tax cuts as they need also requires a complete retrenchment of the solar programs, the green energy programs, the New Deal programs. Not that we ever got the Green New Deal fully, but the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed under President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. It included so much funding for renewable energy, so much funding for solar panels and for wind power. And this matter, we literally just got solar panels put on our house through one of these programs, because having access to green energy was something that states are now mandating, because states realize, even in the Northeast, they're like, hold up, we got whole ass hurricanes, we got tornadoes, and we got earthquakes in the Northeast. Never had that before. So a lot of states in the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, are now saying, listen, if you want to weatherize your home, if you want to increase, tap your home into renewable energy, we will pay for it to go on your house, but we want to use that capacity. We want to use the excess capacity that your solar panels will generate to make sure that the people around you, your neighbors, also have access to energy. This bill cuts those programs and it invests in coal. So not only does it reject clean energy programs, it invests in the exact type of energy programs that have destroyed the fucking planet. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. They want to cut the programs that would lead us into green energy and invest in coal. At the same time that they just cut all of the funding for the programs that make sure that people who work in the coal mines don't end up getting black lung disease. And I love everything black, but black lung disease, I do not. Basically ending up with lungs that are so full of coal dust and tar and all sorts of chemicals. They cut the funding for the healthcare program for the coal miners while they are mandating to cut the energy capacity for green energy and instead expand coal and dirty energy. They're going to have the biggest cut in food assistance programs for families, for children, for veterans. They are going to increase the deficit by $4 trillion fucking dollars just so the millionaires and the billionaires can get a $1 trillion tax cut. You need to be on the phone You need to have downloaded the 5Calls app. You need to be making real crystal clear with your elected officials exactly what will happen. And what will happen is if we get to another election, we will vote them out. Let's talk about that because there are so many questions I have right now about whether or not we are going to actually get to another election, which is one of the reasons why people have been talking a whole lot about a sick out. A whole lot. Folks have been talking about the fact that we are in a moment right now where people should just stay home. It should be a general strike. Now, I'm not necessarily, I don't know. I'm just saying that we should think about this because it's a big issue. And I want you to listen. Actually, Amina, remind me to pull the sick out video in just a second. But we're also seeing that the trade unions are now very upset about what's in this bill because the trade unions are now suggesting or stating, quite frankly, that very explicitly that this bill is also going to be a job killer. The North American Building Trades Union, NABTU, the president, Sean McGarvey, issued the following statement. He said the revised Senate draft released late last night is a massive insult to the working men and women of the North America Building Trades Union and all construction workers. This is not what they voted for. We can quibble with that because a lot of the people in the unions voted against their own best interests. A lot of people in the unions voted to uphold white supremacy, even though that man told you he ain't had no plan, but just concepts of a plan for work. So whether or not y'all voted for this or not, that's debatable. That's debatable. But let's get back to the point. If enacted, this big bitch ass bill, they don't say that, that's what I say. But if enacted, this big bitch ass bill stands to be the biggest job killing bill in the history of this country. Simply put, it is the equivalent of terminating more than 1,000 Keystone XL pipeline projects. In some cases, it worsens the already harmful trajectory of the House-passed language, threatening an estimated 1.75 million construction jobs and over 3 billion work hours, which translates to $148 billion in lost annual wages and benefits. Our 3 million members are ready, willing, and able to build this country into the world's undisputed energy superpower, but this bill takes their jobs away and undermines the mission. You got fucking elongated muskrat who is upset about the bill because, as we talked about last week, AI, artificial intelligence data centers, so every time you type something into Grok or ChatGPT, one, you're destroying the planet. Let's just be honest. Two, you're destroying black communities in the planet because a lot of these AI data centers are now in black communities that have been so legally and politically and economically disempowered that they cannot even do the work that they need. And we just had a conversation with Representative Justin J. Pierston out of Tennessee about this very thing happening in Tennessee. So if you are using Grok in particular is now being accused in a lawsuit of basically destroying the air for black people and communities in this community and people who live in these communities because the data centers use so much water. They require so much energy. So every time you type hello into AI, that's like somebody drank this much water. Every time you type AI, something in the AI says, hey, Grok, or hey, ChatGPT, how you doing, girl? That ChatGPT machine just drank this much water. 2 cups of water just for you to say hi to an artificial intelligent thing that's really a compilation of a whole bunch of other people's previous contents. Whatever. The point is, I'm not saying that I'm against artificial intelligence. I'm just saying we should be aware of it. And if the people who run AI data centers, which use so much energy, they are now saying by the end of next year, we're going to require the same amount of energy that the entire UK puts out in order just to meet the need of the data centers. It requires so much energy that to refuse to invest in wind and solar basically means you are destroying the planet intentionally, proactively, and faster than any of your predecessors. The big bitch ass bill also cuts Pell Grants. It also cuts the subsidies for loans for students. It makes full-time students go from 12 hours to 15 hours. So a lot of times people will take a minimum of 12 hours because you also got to work. When I was in college, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school, and I cleaned apartments, and I sold plasma because the sister friend was poor as fuck when it came to school. And so you work, you take classes. There's a variety of ways to do it. Some people will take so many classes that they graduate early. Some of us couldn't do that. So we take as few classes as we can and still be considered a full-time student because we often have to work full time. And so when that happens, if you raise the amount of hours that a student has to take from 12 credit hours to 15 credit hours in order to count as full time, that means you're basically making it even more difficult for working class people to actually be able to go to school. And also, this big bitch ass bill will forbid future presidents from forgiving student loans. It will not allow your student loans to be discharged after 20 years of payments. You will literally be paying your student loan debt payments out of your Social Security check when you at the end of your life. All of this is packed into the big bitch ass bill. Again, I already talked about the fact that it's seeking to to destroy our energy capacity, and they are looking to also end the tax incentives that are going to make it better for people to have green energy. Now, what's interesting is they were having a lot of difficulty getting all the senators to agree to this That was very interesting because the Republican senators are crystal clear this is very bad. Tom Tillis, basically out of North Carolina, came out swinging and said this bill is so terrible. It is awful. It is disgusting. Donald Trump tried to come for him and was like, Tim Tillis needs to be primary because Tim Tillis is a joke to MAGA. He disrespects MAGA. And Tim Tillis was like, bitch, hold my beer. I ain't even running again. Primary me all the fuck that you want. I ain't even going to run again. So now I get to be free. I get to be honest. So Tom Tillis is, did I say Tim? I meant Tom. Tom Tillis is telling the truth to the Republicans. The Republicans ain't going to want to hear it. Lisa Murkowski, fake ass woman from Alaska. And I call her fake ass because she and Susan Collins do that. They do that thing that many white women do when you pretend to be on the side of justice, but we all know that you're really not, and you're going to stab us in the back as soon as you can. Not all of you do this, but enough of you do this that it's a cultural observation. It's a thing that we all know about, generally speaking, what happens in white womanhood. Lisa Murkowski, who is the senator from Alaska, basically she's been pretending that maybe she'll caucus with the Democrats, and she basically said that she was going to do that in the lead up to this bill because she knows that if this bill goes through, it's going to destroy health care for everybody in Alaska. They made her a special deal. They gave her a special super secret deal and was like, well, Lisa Murkowski, we'll just carve Alaska out of the Medicaid provisions. So this bitch, this woman who knew that this plan was going to destroy her local community was willing to accept the plan if she could get a carve out for her people. She said, fuck the rest of y'all and your health care. Me nah, I care. She don't give a good damn about anybody else as long as her people were going to be good. And that's what y'all do, you Amy Coney Barretts. That's what y'all do all the fucking time. That's why we don't be marching with y'all. That's why we can't march with you. But then the Senate parliamentarian was like, you can't do that. So all of these deals that they were making, as the Senate parliamentarian is the one person in this entire battle who's like nonpartisan, who they actually have to listen to. And if the Senate parliamentarian says you can't do this thing because what they're trying to do is put all of this into a reconciliation bill. A reconciliation bill only requires 51 votes in the Senate. Right. Well, 50 votes. They have, what is it? What's that man's name? The smoky-eyed vice president. They have smoky-eyed J.D. Vance who would break the tie. So if the tie in the Senate went 50-50, smoky-eyed J.D. Vance would be able to break the tie. They only need 50 votes in the Senate if they do this as a reconciliation bill. A reconciliation bill can only happen if it's solely about the money. Once you start adding substantive stuff or making carve-outs for Lisa fucking Murkowski, right? Once you do that, then you're no longer in a position where it's a reconciliation bill. You need 60 votes. So now that that piece has gone, it's been shuttled or scuttled by the Senate parliamentarian, there's a lot of question as to whether or not they're even going to get the 50 votes that they need. That's why you have to call. And I know it feels like some stupid ass shit where ain't nobody listening, but you have to call the Senate switchboard. You have to call the congressional switchboard. And you can call them at 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. You gotta call them because if you call them, if you make it nasty for them, if you show up at their office, and when I say nasty, I mean uncomfortable, right? I don't mean obviously we mean nothing untoward, right? Nothing untoward, but make it uncomfortable for them. Show up at their office, call them all day, every day. Get your mama to call them every day. Get your daddy to call them. Get your aunties, your uncles, your friends, your neighbors. Call them. Call them in the morning. Call them. Call them in the evening. Call them. Call them in the afternoon. There is a church song that goes something like that. I can't remember it at the moment, but you gotta call these people like you was calling on the name of Black Jesus to get you out of trouble with the white man. The number you can call is 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. We really should come up with a call name, like a little song. I'm gonna have to work on that. The point is this. We don't have a lot of time to make sure that this bill does not lock in the complete dismantling of all of the institutional things that we rely upon to make this world not a complete and absolute total hellhole, because they are working to make it a complete and absolute total hellhole, because that's what White Manistan is, and that's what these people want. 866-801-8255. 866-801-TALK is the number. We're going to take your calls. Instagram, thank you so much. Oh, and also download the 5 Calls app. If you download the 5 Calls app, let's say you want to call, but you're like, Lurie, I don't really know what to say. And as much as I want to call, these people, they freak me out. I've never really had good interactions with the feds, and these are literally the feds. If you go to your app store and download an app called 5, like the number 5 Calls, like 5 Calls app, that's what it's called, you will basically be able to, 1, plug in your zip code. They will be able to tell you who your senators are, who your congressional representatives are. You can go down the list of items that they have available, and you can find the ones that relate to the issue you care about. In this case, look for the one called the Big Bitch Ass Bill. It's probably not going to have the word bitch ass in it, but it will have language about what the bill is. You go down, you scroll to that one, you hit the one that relates to the bill you want to call your senator or your congressional representative about. It will open up a screen that has information for you there. And not a whole lot of information, because we know most Americans don't really read beyond the 6th grade level. So it's not going to inundate you with a whole bunch of stuff, but it's going to give you enough information, and it will give you a script. You can literally use the script to call the direct, and you can use the 5 calls app. You don't even have to leave the app and go into your phone. It will call directly from the app for you. It makes it super, super easy. And no, the 5 calls app does not sponsor this show. I think we should just know about it. It is a tool that is extraordinarily useful. And quite frankly, America, my God, you don't have a lot of time. We do not have a lot of time, and they're trying to pass this thing out of the Senate this week. Once it gets out of the Senate, it's going to have to go to the House, and it's going to have to, basically, this should be the summer of turn up. This needs to be the summer of engagement. This needs to be the summer of outreach. And if you're not going to protest, that's fine, because I'm not going to be protesting. I'm not protesting with y'all because y'all not trustworthy. We already know that y'all willing to sacrifice Black people. Y'all not trustworthy. But I will show up at my elected's office. I will give Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand a call every single day and make sure that they don't bitch out. I will make sure that I'm funding races and doing what I can to support the races of people who are contesting, the people who want to run. We cannot make the same mistakes that we made in the lead up to the 2024 election, where people thought somebody else was going to have it. Ain't nobody else got it. Do you? Do you? That's the question we got to ask ourselves. Who's going to handle this? Because somebody's going to have to. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK is the number. Adios, Instagram, YouTube.